Gratitude became a tool of control. It's a way to keep you small and a reason why you've been feeling like you can't speak up. There's a difference between genuine gratitude, this is an emotion that honors what we have received, and weaponized gratitude. This is a tool that silences what we need. One creates connection and the other one creates compliance. The amygdala needs new data. How we do this is through gently, consistently showing the body that is safe to want more.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.
Hola, hola. Welcome back to Café con Pam, en donde compartimos nuestras historias sin censura and in a very bilingual way. Okay, lock in, pull up a chair. This is going to be a good one, I think. And I truly believe this is a good time for you and I to have some cafecito and some real talk. Imagine, or take yourself back. You just got promoted. You're making more money than your parents ever dreamt of. Y en lugar de celebrar, you're sitting in your car rehearsing how to tell your mom without making her feel like you've forgotten where you came from. Sounds familiar? Because somewhere along the way, you learn that gratitude and ambition cannot coexist. That being thankful means staying quiet about what you still want, and that honoring your parents' sacrifice means never asking for more. Según, no? Your whole life, you've heard, be grateful for what you have. After everything we've done, who do you think you are? And these could be things that you may have heard or you may have created in your head. And the unspoken message underneath all of that is que your desire is a betrayal and that your voice is disrespect. Y la verdad, eso literal es calladita culture. So today we're calling it what it is, a lie. Yo soy Pam Covarrubias and this is Café con Pam. Bienvenida. Let's get into this. Gratitude and voice, they're not enemies. It's a cultural conditioning that taught you they are, and that is what's actually stealing your joy. And I'm telling you this because I went through it myself. Lo voy a repetir otra vez. Being grateful does not mean being quiet. And probably you've been suffocating under the weight of gratitude that demands your silence. El día de hoy, we're going to reclaim what gratitude actually means, and we are going to give ourselves permission to actually want more and be okay with it. Let's start with la verdad, with the truth, is that your parents, our familias, were not wrong to teach us gratitude because we have to also honor the fact that they survived things we cannot even fathom. They crossed borders literally, they crossed borders metaphorically, no puedo decir esa palabra, metafóricamente hablando. They worked jobs that broke their bodies so we could all have choices they never had. When they say be grateful, they actually mean it with every fiber of their being because for them, gratitude is not just an emotion, it's armor, it's protection. It's the thing that kept them going when todo estaba falling apart, when they lost their culture, their language, when they had to adapt and assimilate. And so that's all it was. Y la verdad, what happened is that somewhere between their sacrifice and your success, gratitude became something else. That bridge between their sacrifice and your success, there's this, I imagine it like a little invisible thread that unites them. And gratitude became a tool of control. It's a way to keep you small and a reason why you've been feeling like you can't speak up. Y otra vez, I'm saying all of this because I felt it myself. But I haven't been the only one talking about it. In her groundbreaking work, Borderlands La Frontera, Gloria Anzaldúa writes about what it means to live between two worlds, how first-generation folks like us straddle the borderlands, constantly exposed to the Spanish of our families on one side and the Anglos, incessant clamoring on the other. Y Gloria Anzaldúa nos recuerda that we learn to code switch, to translate, to be just brown enough or Mexican enough at home and just American enough at school. And in that constant translation, that's where we lost the permission to be whole. And gratitude, of course, became the bridge we had to cross perfectly. Never complaining on the Mexican side or your country's side, never appearing ungrateful on the American side. Porque, just be grateful, always grateful, silently grateful. Y yo me acuerdo a time when I told one of my tias that I was just having a hard time. And I wasn't even complaining. I was just like, running a business is hard. And I was in the middle of that transition. I feel like I've been in a transition for a long time. But I was dealing with some stuff at the time. And I was like, it's hard to juggle everything because I have to not just run the business, but also I have to wear a ton of hats and I have to wear the marketing hat and the sales hat. And we had just gone into like, it was this weird spot in 2020 when you're like, I don't know, are we going to stay in business? Are we going to fully transition to online? It was like just weird. And I was like, I'm feeling a little bit like drowning, but I wasn't complaining. I was just speaking truth. And instead of comfort, what I got was, ¿y tú de qué te quejas? You have opportunities a lot of people wish they could have. You're a US citizen. You have your business. You speak English. O sea, ¿de qué te quejas? And I mean, she wasn't wrong, pero she wasn't hearing me. And in that moment, that's when I realized that gratitude wasn't an invitation to share my truth. And it was that wall that kept me from being seen. And I know that my tia has love for me, and I know that, in fact, she wasn't trying to hurt me. She was just speaking from her own experience and her own survival, and from a place where complaining was a luxury we've been taught we couldn't afford, just like therapy at some point. La otra cosa es que what worked for her survival was now asking me to abandon my truth. So let me be clear here. There's a difference between genuine gratitude, this is an emotion that honors what we have received, and weaponized gratitude. This is a tool that silences what we need. Genuine gratitude says, I see what you gave me and I'm grateful. Thank you so much. Weaponized gratitude says, after everything I did for you, how dare you want more? You see the difference? One creates connection and the other one creates compliance. Y bueno, for so many of us, first gens, eldest daughters, second, even third, I have clients that are third generation. It's still passed on because we learned that being ungrateful or being called ungrateful is the worst thing that could happen. Worse than being wrong, actually. Worse than failing. Because ungrateful meant we had forgotten where we came from. So there was this like underlining connection of gratitude and your roots in a way. And being ungrateful meant we were betraying the sacrifice that allowed us to be here. So that made us stay quiet. We smiled and we said thank you even when we felt like suffocating. We smiled and we did the things when we knew we couldn't do it all. We smiled and we didn't speak up at meetings because be grateful you have that job. Also, Dr. Rachel Yehuda's research on intergenerational trauma shows that children of trauma survivors often report feeling traumatized by the expectations placed on them. Okay? Let me repeat that in case that was not clear. Children of trauma survivors often report feeling traumatized by the expectations placed on them. That they feel, children of trauma survivors feel they are the reason their parents survive, which creates a whole set of accomplishments they now achieve. Talk about pressure. And does it sound familiar, actually? So give yourselves permission to take a breath here and just kind of like process this. When I read it the first time, I was like, oh, well, no wonder. Because what it means is that we're not carrying our own dreams. We're carrying the weight of every sacrifice our parents made, our grandparents made, every border they crossed, every insult they swallowed, every dream they deferred. And gratitude became the rope that tied you to that weight. And this is, of course, not at all saying that parents were cruel or the family want to hurt us at all. We know they did the best they could with what they had. However, survival taught them that safety meant silence, and that was passed on to us. So we learned the same. So now let's talk about what actually happens in your body when someone says, be grateful, and you feel your throat close up. Primero, this is not weakness. Let's just clarify. Speaking of throat closing up, this isn't you being too sensitive, and this is your nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do. And we know this that our bodies are designed to speak up when they notice danger. Dr. Stephen Porges, who developed polyvagal theory, explains that our feelings of safety emerge from internal physiological states regulated by the autonomic nervous system. What does that mean? Well, basically, that your body has this alarm system that is constantly scanning for information, for external factors. It's our social engagement system. It's a part of us that connect us with other people, and it only functions. I mean, it functions all the time, but it also signals to us when we feel safe. What it means, in other words, is that basically when you were a child and you expressed what you wanted, what you needed, what you felt, and you were met with, don't talk back. Te va a aventar la chancla. Cállese porque le aviento la chancla. Or things like, after everything we've done for you, yo. I was like, when I was writing this, I was trying to think of all the things that I heard, like, yo me parto el lomo todos los días para que ustedes ni agradezcan. You should be grateful. Or worse, even the silence treatment or the look, that mom look or that parent look or even that grandmother look of like, they just need to look at you and you're like, oh. So that look of silence, disappointment, and even withdrawal, no? What happened is that our nervous system got filled up with that information and it learned the signals. It learned patterns that speaking my truth equals is a threat to belonging equals it's a survival danger. So the thing about your nervous system is that your body doesn't care if you're 5 years old or you're 50 years old. It doesn't care if you have success, if you are independent, if you're accomplished, if you live by yourself or you still live with your parents. When the old patterns get activated, your body responds the way it learned to respond. The body always goes back to the familiar. The body will always go back to what the body knows how to respond to. And so, if we are so used to the silence, the disappointment, the shaming of it, then when anything feels close to that, this is when we notice our voice shakes, our throat tightens, we second guess ourselves, we rehearse even conversations before we have them. You kind of like overthink and plan out you walking into that meeting. And this is not because you don't know what to say. This is simply because your nervous system is unconsciously sending signals of danger that discourage social engagement behaviors because it's basing it on prior evidence. Here's where it gets really specific to first gen daughters, eldest daughters, us. Psychotherapist Pete Walker, who coined the term fawning, describes it as a response to a threat by becoming more appealing to the threat. Okay? So, fawn types seek safety by merging with the wishes, with the needs, and the demands of others. acting as if the price of admission to any relationship is forfeiting all their needs, rights, preferences, and even boundaries. ¿Cómo ves? Are we resonating here? I'm so grateful, Mom. Thank you so much. Of course, I don't need anything. Of course, everything's fine. No, really, I'm so happy. And meanwhile, inside, you're thinking, I'm actually drowning. I need a lot of help. I'm scared. I'm at the verge of burnout. And I don't know if I can keep this up on myself. But the thing is that very early, we learned that protesting leads to even more frightening parental retaliation. So, what we do is we relinquish our fight response. We delete no from our vocabulary because when we remove no from our vocabulary, we become helpful, pleasing, and grateful. And this is fawning, and it's not your fault, and it's not even your parents' fault. It's just the perception that our body created when we experience what we experience and what we learn to survive. So, physiologically, so you have even more clarity on what happens in the body. When someone brings up sacrifice, this becomes the trigger point. This becomes like the alarm turns on. So, I think of it like a smoke alarm in your house, and like they're so sensitive to sometimes they're so annoying because like I can't even have incense in my house. Like the very like moment a teeny tiny bit of smoke touches that thing, it starts going off. That's how sensitive your amygdala is. And your amygdala is that sensor, is the detection center. It's a protector of you that will always and forever scan for danger. So if you get a little bit of smoke that says, ooh, this could be familiar, somebody talks about sacrifice or that comes up somewhere, then the amygdala says, danger, danger, danger. Your body then prepares to respond. The four different types of responses: fight, flight, freeze, or fawning. We know that fighting, like speaking up, got us in trouble as a kid. Many of us. We also know that fleeing, flight, running away was not an option because how dare you abandon the people that sacrifice so much? So the default for us usually is fawning. This is when we become agreeable, apologetic, grateful, and we minimize what we need and perform thankfulness. Now, this could apply to you. Some of you might be like, no, I'm a fighter. I will speak up. But think about how much trouble you got into for doing so. Of course, what I share, it's not going to apply to everyone because I'm also pulling a lot from my own experience and how I personally, and a lot of my clients that I work with created the pattern of fawning. And the irony here that happens is that the very behavior that kept you safe as a child is now suffocating you as an adult. It's kind of wild to think about. So it could apply, thinking about the five wounds of Gaeta culture. We're talking about the wound of silence and how you could be overcompensated or undercompensated in the wound. And in this case, we're talking mainly for those undercompensated who will tend to fawn, but you can also fight. How this could show up for you as an adult. Think you're in a meeting, you have an idea, it's a good idea, but before you speak, your body will, like, before you even think about it, like, this is so subconscious that you don't get to clock it because you're thinking about your idea. While you're thinking about your idea and while you're like overthinking how you're going to say it, your body's already doing the math. Your amygdala is like, wait, let me just scan for information. And the amygdala, what actually is processing is, if I say this, are they going to think I am too much? Are they going to think if maybe I am too ambitious? Or maybe I'm so ungrateful for my current position? Who do I think I am? And I've seen this happen even with CEOs. And this is not imposter phenomenon, actually. I would say that this is your nervous system remembering the last time I wanted something, I was told to be grateful for what I had. And so speaking up equals criticism equals danger. So what you do, you stay quiet. I think there's a difference between the imposter phenomenon, and maybe people might argue that it's connected too, but it's not you doubting yourself. Like, you know that your idea is good. But it's that signaling from your amygdala that says, you might get in trouble for this. So you stay quiet and you let somebody else share your idea and you perform gratitude for the opportunity to even be in the room. And then you go home and you wonder why you feel so empty. And then you come to me and then we talk about it and you're like, why did I not speak up? It's happened many times. And what I want to tell you is that your body is not broken. Your nervous system is actually doing an incredible job of keeping you safe. That's the role of the body. That's the role of the amygdala. The amygdala is actually on our side because she wants to make sure you're safe. She wants to keep you safe based on the information that it has. So that's the thing that we want to remember about our bestie, the amygdala. She decides on her actions based on historical data. The challenge is that the information, the historical data that she's pulling from is outdated because what kept you safe at 5 years old, it's now keeping you small as an adult. And the compliance that protected you from your parents' disappointment is now preventing you from living your truth, from being in your power, from speaking up and sharing your story that's so needed. And the finding that earned you approval is, of course, now costing you so much power. And the gratitude that was supposed to honor the sacrifice, well, that has now become the cage. We all know this. Talking about money is not always the most comfortable. Pero our friends from Savvy Ladies make it easier. And now in Espanol, you don't have to feel the pressure to translate for your mamá or your tías because Savvy Ladies has their whole site en nuestro idioma. Y ahora they can easily access their free resources like talleres, clases, y mi favorita es la línea gratis para enviar preguntas. Their free financial helpline en donde puedes conectar with a trusted financial expert. Whether you need financial guidance in English or in Espanol, Savvy Ladies is here to support you. Visit savvyladies.org, that is SAVVYLADIES.org para empezar your financial freedom. You know what's frustrating? Losing your wallet. And sometimes what's even more painful? Realizing your almost full punch card from your favorite cafecito spot is now gone. But at least, even when your cafecito points have vanished, at BMO, if you lose your debit card, they'll print you a new one instantly at a local branch. Plus, you can use your phone to freeze your debit card to prevent any unauthorized transactions. Learn more at bmo.com. Conditions apply. Accounts provided in the United States by BMO Bank and a member FDIC. So, the first step to healing this pattern is not going to be to force yourself to speak up or just be more confident. So, this is a pet peeve of mine when I hear people like, just brainwash yourself into confidence. No, ma'am. That's not how it works. Because the first step is recognizing this is what my body learned. You want to create that awareness around you to say, I am whole as I am with what my body learned from before. And just like my body was able to learn this, I can also teach my body new things because the amygdala needs new data. It needs micro moments where speaking your truth does not result in abandonment, when wanting more does not equal betrayal, where your voice feels super safe to be and exist and share. And the work is to first create awareness. It's never to force, it's never to push through. You can't heal yourself through affirmations. You could actually, but it might take some years. And so how we do this is through gently, consistently showing the body that is safe to want more, that is safe to ask for more, that is safe to feel whole and grateful and accomplished at the same time. So here's your invitation to give yourself permission to accept it. And then we're going to move into dismantling the biggest lie you've been carrying. The lie that you have to choose. There's a lie that we all kind of carry deep underneath into our heart that says you can be grateful or you can want more. The lie that says you can honor your parents' sacrifice or you can chase your dreams. The lie that says you can be a good daughter or you can be ambitious. That is a false binary and it's destroying you. Many times, what I have seen is that people will push through it because a lot of my clients, they come to me and they're like, I am accomplished. I have the business, I have the career. And when I go home, oh, it just feels so bad. It's this push and pull that you're constantly dealing with. But let me tell you what actual science of gratitude says because it's important and because, it's important for me to quote people that have done the work before me and have actually studied it. So, Dr. Robert Emmons, the world's leading researcher on gratitude, defines it as having two parts. First, we affirm that there are good things in the world, and this doesn't mean life is perfect or that we ignore complaints and burdens. Second, we recognize that the sources of this goodness come from outside ourselves. So notice that this is not a definition. Nowhere does it say, and therefore you must stay small, and therefore you can't move, and therefore your voice is betrayal. It doesn't say that. In fact, Dr. Emmons' research shows that gratitude allows us to participate more in life, to notice the positives and magnify the pleasures we get from life. We celebrate goodness instead of just adapting to it. This means that gratitude is actually about engagement instead of compliance, and it's about appreciation instead of silence. So, the reframe that I invite you to try on, simply try it on, is your ambition honors the sacrifice by not wasting opportunities they created. Your ambition honors the sacrifice by not wasting the opportunities they created. Because our parents didn't sacrifice so much so we could play small. They didn't cross borders so we could stay silent. They didn't break their back so we could break our spirit trying to be grateful enough. They sacrificed everything so we could be free. And freedom means you get to want more. You get to speak your truth. You get to build on whatever they gave you on top of it without guilt. Let me tell you a story about a client who was making a lot of money in her business. And on paper, she had everything. Everything. She had the success, she had the business, she had the Instagram account, she had the car, the purse, everything. At the end of the day, she was miserable because every time she celebrated a win, she heard a voice saying, ¿Y para qué quieres más? Why do you need more? So she stopped celebrating. She downplayed her success. She performed gratitude while secretly resenting the very achievements she had worked so hard for. And the fact that she had achieved them, frankly, that alone, as a Latina, is a big deal. And so when we started working together, I asked her, what do you think your parents actually wanted for you? And when she thought about it, long, long pause, that literally came to from her heart, and her answer was, they wanted me not to struggle the way they did because her parents were young parents, they crossed borders, they sacrificed everything. And I asked, "Are you struggling?" And her answer was, "I'm not, and I feel so guilty that I'm not." Survivor's guilt. There it was. The guilt of not suffering. So, what we did is we worked on a reframe. What if your ease is the evidence that their sacrifice actually worked? What if your ability to make money without breaking your body so hard is exactly what they hoped for? What if your ambition is not a betrayal to them? It's actually proof that you heard when they said, "We want better for you." And then everything shifted for her because she started celebrating her wins and she didn't feel that she was betraying her parents because she was winning and they couldn't. She was actually in practice of true, genuine gratitude. And so instead of saying, I should just be grateful for what I have, you could say, I am grateful for what I have and I am choosing to create more. Instead of saying, who am I to want this when my parents had so much less? You could say, because my parents had so much less, I am building on the foundation they gave me and I'm going to make them so proud. Instead of saying, my desire is disrespectful to their struggle, because we almost feel like we're leaving them behind. But you could try to say, my desire is the result of their hope and they wanted this for me. Because the truth is, you're not choosing between gratitude and ambition or between honoring your family and honoring yourself. You're choosing both because both are true. And actually, science supports this because Dr. Emmon's research shows that gratitude blocks toxic negative emotions like envy and resentment. But notice that it doesn't block healthy desire, authentic ambition, or truthful expression. Real gratitude will never ask you to shrink, will never demand your silence, and will never cost you power. Because what our parents taught us was survival gratitude. And this is the kind that keep us safe by keeping us small. What we are learning now is sovereign gratitude, is the kind that honors the past while we claim our future with pride, with gratitude, with honor, and with a lot of respect. Let me say this straight up. You are allowed to be grateful and ambition. We all are. You're allowed to honor your parents' sacrifice and build your own dreams. You're allowed to appreciate what you have and ask for more. And it's not disrespect, it's actually integration. Because what it means to live in the borderlands, to hold both cultures, both truths, both realities without fragmenting yourself, as we learn from Gloria and Saldua, who taught us that being in the borderlands means you don't have to choose between worlds. You get to create our own third space, the space where multiple truths coexist. Because gratitude is real, your desire is real, and both could be true. And nobody needs an explanation for that. So, how do we practice gratitude without suffocating under it? How do we honor our parents' sacrifice without abandoning ourselves? How do we be grateful without being silent? Let's reclaim what gracias actually means. When we say thank you in our family, what are we really saying? For many of us, gracias became code for I won't complain, I won't ask for more, I'm not going to disappoint you, I'm going to just stay small so you feel that your sacrifice was worth it. Pero what if gracias? What if gracias? But what if gracias could just mean I see you, I value what you gave me, and I'm taking it forward? Instead of saying I'll stop here because anything more would be greedy. But what if gracias means thank you for building this foundation? Now, watch what I build on top of it and wait for me to build it so strongly so I can bring you with. Porque let's break the difference of authentic gratitude and weaponized gratitude. Weaponized gratitude uses guilt as motivation. After all I've done for you. Weaponized gratitude demands compliance as proof of thankfulness. It makes you feel like your needs are betrayal. It requires you to stay exactly where they left off, and it's almost like this invisible pull that we get. I often work with people who haven't like it's really hard for them to make more than their parents ever made annually. And that's kind of like a ceiling that people have. I notice is if let's say if your mom, the most she ever made was $30,000 a year, when you start making $30,000 a month, that's like the ceiling for some odd reason. That's weaponized gratitude because it measures love by how much you sacrifice yourself. Now, authentic gratitude is acknowledges the gift without owing your whole self. It honors the sacrifice by using the opportunities they created. It allows both appreciation and aspiration. It celebrates your growth as proof that their work actually mattered. And it measures love by how much you actually thrive. Now, Dr. Emmons' research shows that true gratitude involves recognizing that good things come from sources outside of ourselves, but it doesn't require us to forfeit our own needs or silence our own voice as payment. I'm reiterating that because gratitude is receiving, not owing. There are three ways to practice gratitude without silencing yourself. Número uno, we want to separate appreciation from obligation. So, the invitation here is for you to say, I am grateful for what you gave me. Punto y se acabó. That's a complete sentence. We don't want to add, so I'll never want more. So I'll stay exactly here. So I'll make my life about proving it was worth it. No, no, no. Appreciation stands alone, and it never wants sacrifice to be tied to it. So separate appreciation from obligation and try it. I'm grateful for what you gave me y punto y se acabó. Número dos, honor their hope, not just their struggle. Because your parents didn't just suffer, they also had so much hope. If they didn't, they wouldn't have come. They hoped you had choices. They hoped you would build something beautiful, and they hoped you wouldn't have to struggle the way they did. So, when you honor their sacrifice, you also honor the hope that fueled their sacrifice. This means succeeding, growing, speaking up, taking up space, building wealth, living fully and indulging in this beautiful life we get access to. And that's not betrayal, that's fulfillment of the hope. Número tres, we practice cyclical gratitude. So here's what I mean gratitude does not end with you. You're grateful for what your parents, grandparents, your family gave you. And you're building something you'll give forward. Ese es el ciclo y el legado. That's the legacy. Pero you don't honor the sacrifice by staying stuck. You honor it by continuing the building. This is where you want to make sure the three ways to practice gratitude without silencing yourself allow you to feel more free, which is ultimately what your parents wanted. Separate appreciation from obligation, honor their hope, not just their struggle, and practice cyclical gratitude. I was going to say attitude. Practice cyclical attitude. Practice cyclical gratitude. So let me bring my own values for a moment. So I have 6 core values, and in this case, when I was writing this episode, I always go back to my core values, and I often think about how am I honoring those guiding principles that I choose to live by, even when I share an episode. And so, grace, for example, is one of my core values, and it means I honor my parents' humanity and my own because they did the best they could with what they had, and so am I. Even thinking past versions of me. Past versions of me didn't have the tools that I currently have. So, also present me doesn't have all the tools I'll ever have in the future. And so, giving myself grace, this is why grace is so important because it brings me back to presence. Trust unfolding is another one of my values. It means I don't have to have it all figured out right now. I can be grateful for where I am while trusting there's more coming and trusting also that things are going to happen for me. Things are going to happen in my favor. Wonder forward means I get curious. What if my parents' biggest hope was that I would be free? And what would that freedom look like? I get curious about what did they imagine for us, not just me as the eldest daughter, but also like all their kids, my siblings even. Anchored in self means my gratitude comes from my core, not from my performance. And I'm grateful because I feel it, not because I'm supposed to prove it. And for a long time, I spent years trying to prove it. And now thankfully, I've arrived at that place where I am anchored in myself because I honor who I am. I honor my identity, my voice, my truth, and my power. And listen, this is not perfect. We're still working on it. But at least we've arrived at that place where I don't feel like I need to prove something to whoever. And something beautiful that happens is that for all of us, there's wisdom in our culture that actually supports this. Uno de mis dichos favoritos es el sol sale para todos. And I've said it since I first started Café con Pam, actually, because the thought that came when I first started the podcast was, o sea, hay cuatro más. At the time, there were like so little. Now there's so many more. And even back then, I had this feeling of like there's already four people podcasting. Like, why do you want to be the fifth one? And so immediately I could hear my grandfather say, El sol sale para todos. The sun rises for everyone. I always ground myself in that. Anytime I feel some comparisonitis in some way, I bring myself back to El sol sale para todos. And El sol doesn't shy away from blinding people, actually. El sol is going to be bright AF and just shine. I love the sun. And el sol sale para todos, including you, because your light doesn't dim their light. Your success does not erase their struggle. Your voice is not disrespecting their sacrifice. Porque el sol sale para todos, and that includes all of us first gens, immigrants, daughters of immigrants, second, third gens, eldest daughters, who are tired of choosing between gratitude and growth. Because we get both. So let's bring this home. Being grateful doesn't mean being quiet. Honoring your parents' sacrifice does not mean abandoning your dreams. And your desire, that thing you've been taught to feel guilty about, isn't betrayal. It's simply proof that their hope actually took root. You're not ungrateful because you want more. You're not disrespectful because you speak up. You're not too much because you refuse to stay small. You're simply refusing to let gratitude become the lie that keeps you silent. So next time someone says, "Ooh, be grateful," next time someone tells you, "Just be grateful," when what you really need is to be heard, take a breath, pause for a second, and ask yourself, grateful for what? Grateful for foundation? Absolutely. Does that gratitude require my silence about what I'm building on top of it? Absolutely not. Grateful for opportunities created? Absolutely. Does that gratitude mean I cannot create more? Absolutely not. Grateful for the sacrifice? Always. Does that gratitude mean I sacrifice myself too? Absolutely no. You can be grateful and voiced. You can be thankful and ambitious. You can honor the past and claim your future, because both and is your medicine. So, if this episode, you know, hit you in the chest in some way with lots of love, if you feel seen, if you feel that exhale of recognition, maybe finally you have words for what you've been carrying, I invite you to take the Galeta Culture quiz that lets you uncover your wound, the biggest one that you're carrying. And this is the one that's asking for your attention first, because naming it is the first step to reclaiming it. And you deserve to reclaim your voice without guilt. You deserve to hold gratitude and desire in the same breath. You deserve to be whole, and your truth is your medicine. Never too much. Because the world needs women who know that being grateful and being vocal are not enemies. They're both and that is what changes everything. Thank you so much for being here. If you loved this episode, please share with your friends. Let's discuss it. Tag me. Tell me what resonated. Let's talk about it in the DMs. I love doing that. Be grateful, but don't make it a weaponized gratitude. Make it authentic gratitude. Otra vez, muchas gracias. Y bueno, como siempre, sigue brillando. Café con Pam is created con mucho amor by our small but mighty team. Content production by Nancy Jaimes. Podcast management by Maru Linardi. Social media and marketing by Brenda Figueroa. And me, your host, Pam Covarrubias. To keep the cafecito brewing and the healing flowing, Join the Supporters Club for only $5 a month and access early episodes, behind the scenes vibes, and exclusive minisodes you won't hear anywhere else. Screenshot this episode and tag me and share what resonated. I love seeing your takeaways. Follow on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's keep the conversation going with us on social media at Cafe Con Pan Podcast, because your voice always matters there. We love being on Instagram and Facebook. Gracias for listening to Cafe Con Pan, a Spread Ideas Move People production. For more episodes, guest info, or resources, visit cafeconpam.com. And if you're healing from calladita culture and don't know where to start, you can take the quiz. cafeconpam.com/quiz for tia wisdom and cariño just for you.
Sabrosura pa' ti que